Ah, Soulslikes. The genre I honestly never get tired of. Well, as long as the games are good. And Wuchang is actually pretty good. Now, the thing about Wuchang is it kind of takes inspiration from older Souls games, specifically Dark Souls 1, with its level design and enemies. And as much as I love the whole parry heavy idea of Liza P, Kazan, I actually really enjoyed the switch up in what this game is prioritizing, and in general, I think there will definitely be a good audience for Wuchang. The thing about Souls-likes at this point, though, is there's a certain quality it needs to meet. Obviously, From Software took the action RPG genre by storm with their ideas, and a lot of developers took inspiration from that and made their own things. There's a few like Liza P, the Neo series, First Berserker Kazan, and they brought their own interesting takes to the table, and those games genuinely are great and stand on their own, and don't feel like a Dark Souls clone, but instead feel like action RPGs that took inspiration from them. So where does Wuchang kind of fall? Well, Wuchang, I would say, is right below it for me. So it's not as good as Liza P or the First Berserker Kazan, but it is very good and definitely will give you a good time if you enjoy this genre, and specifically if you enjoy good level design or just exploring a lot of areas. I was actually surprised how big this game is. With the $50 price tag, it's kind of absurd how many areas there are to explore in this game, and they all try to interconnect with each other to make a really cool environment to explore. Sometimes it might even be too much for people, like you will see 5 different directions every time you go into a new area, and it might get overwhelming, but they do interconnect with each other, and it is really fun to find shortcuts and kind of explore around this environment. I think people who really prioritize exploration will love this game. There's also a lot of scenery you're going to see here, from snowy mountaintops to Chinese villages to old rotten temples. There's a lot here to explore, and that honestly I think was the meat and potatoes of Wuchang Fallen Feathers. There was only 2 things that kind of drove me crazy about this. One, they don't get the interconnectivity of the areas perfect. Sometimes you will just get lost and it's going to drive you crazy. Sometimes there's just too many different directions to go and it doesn't flow great. But then other times they flow together well to where you're like, wow, that was really cool. How did this area eventually connect to this other area? So they sometimes get it really good, and then other times it's just a confusing mess. And the other problem, more of a nitpick, is you're just slow in this game. I wish she had the Kazan run from the First Berserker Kazan where she could sprint around the place. Wuchang is just not very fast. The full run speed of her run animation is just too slow for my liking. Maybe because she's carrying around this whole ass dump truck she's got. I don't know. But let's talk about what Wuchang Fallen Feathers does really good and what they bring to the table. So first one is the skill tree. Instead of upgrading each individual stat like you normally would in these games, it's a giant skill tree. And it was a little confusing at first, but I actually ended up really loving this. You're going to have certain weapons, from one-handed swords to dual blades to spears to axes, and each of them have a spot on the skill tree. And as you go down those skill trees, you're going to get new moves and abilities for those weapons, as well as minor skill points where you'll see vitality, strength, feathering, magic, and that's kind of how you build your character. Every time you level up, you get one of these red mercury points to use on the skill tree, and you can respec it at any time. So if you ever want to switch weapons or try a whole new build, you could just take all your points back and edit your skill tree the way you want. This ended up being really fun at the end and really brought a lot of build variety. The best thing Wuchang does, in my opinion, though, is this mechanic called Skyborn Might. So the whole idea of Skyborn Might is you get points as you either perfect dodge or sometimes getting the last hit in your combo. You're going to start racking up these points, and your arm is going to start glowing colors from blue to purple to orange, just showing you how many points you have. And you could use those to use crazy magic spells, super abilities with your weapons. Sometimes it has passive buffs and effects, like you take less damage when you have Skyborn skyborn might, you do more damage when you have it, and I just thought this was so cool because there's a really good flow going on when you're fighting enemies and bosses where you'll do really good and then you just have a whole bunch of ammunition in your back pocket to either shoot some crazy spells, do an ability, or just in general be stronger. The combat in general I thought was really good in this game. All the animations look cool, there's a lot of weight behind it, there's a lot of ways to tackle your situation, everything felt really smooth. Honestly, where they lacked a little bit is in the enemies and bosses. So the first half of the game, the bosses are honestly kind of mid. When you have such amazing action RPGs and Souls games in this day and age, there's a high bar you have to reach, and unfortunately Wuchang, in my opinion, does not reach it, at least the first half of the game. For some reason, they amped up their skills the second half of the game when developing it or something, because the end bosses, or even the mid-tier bosses through the halfway through the game, are way better than the first half of the game, and I don't know what was with that disconnect. But it was more just learning the combat and the level design that was super interesting the first half of the game, and every time I got to a boss, I was like, this is boring. These bosses are not that great. But then once you get closer to the end of the game, they actually start getting pretty insane and gave me a bit of a spectacle and were really good. So there are good bosses, but I don't think it reaches the genre's heights. But again, people who enjoy exploration, interconnected levels, and finding a lot of secrets, that is more what itch is going to be scratched, more so than the bosses, in my opinion. Unlike Liza P, for example, where the bosses were just absolutely incredible to me. The premise and story I actually thought was pretty cool as well. Now, again, it's going to be more environmental storytelling, talking to a lot of different characters and NPCs to kind of piece things together. But you're basically playing as Wuchang in this dark fantasy version of the Ming Dynasty. And she has a disease called the feathering. And what happens here is you start losing your memories and eventually you turn into a monster. But for some reason, Wuchang is not turning. She's just losing her memory slowly, but for some reason, the illness is not taking her over. So she's trying to figure out how to break the curse and try to save China. Now, what's cool about this game, in my opinion, is all the characters really connect well. A lot of them have side quests and a lot of them progress through the story with you. So I thought that was really cool. And the endings were pretty good. There's like a good ending, a true ending, a bad ending, all that sort of stuff. And they're really trippy. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything, but they were definitely entertaining and it's making me want to do New Game Plus to see the other endings. Overall, I genuinely had a great time with Wuchang Fallen Feathers. The combat was smooth enough for me to want to try a bunch of different weapons, a bunch of different builds, and again, the exploration was really cool, even though I was lost a lot of the time. But it's definitely a worthwhile Souls-like, a worthwhile action RPG, and what I think is pretty crazy is the price tag. Like, again, for $50, this game felt huge. There's a lot of content here. Again, even a lot of skins to collect for the character, which was nice. So I think you definitely get a bang for your buck with this game. And in general, you know my opinion on this, I don't really look at Soulslikes as a Dark Souls clone. I look at them as action RPGs that take some inspiration and mechanics from those games. So Wuchang, in my opinion, has its own merits. It has its cool skill tree that is unlike any of the other Souls games where you upgrade. The Skyborn Might system brings a lot of player agency to the table where you could really take control of situations if you're doing good. And again, it's not even that hard. I would put it right in the middle of difficulty when it comes to these games. It's not the hardest, it's not the easiest, but there's a lot of leeway in how you approach situations and a lot of ways to get out of situations. Especially with all the magic and stuff, like you could do some pretty broken builds and just destroy enemies, especially when you find out what they're weak to. But yeah, I would not sleep on Wuchang Fallen Feathers if you're like me and just absolutely love Souls-likes in general. I think it's a must play, especially with the price tag. If you're a little hesitant, maybe wait for it to go on sale and look more into it, but it genuinely is a really fun action RPG and a good experience. A lot of the levels, I think, are really gonna impress you. It's really cool how some of these interconnect and just the environments are really cool to look at. It does have a bit of performance issues. You maybe have seen it on Steam and those reviews. It's not running good on PC right now, so wait for a patch, I would say, for that. In terms of console, on PS5, it honestly ran perfectly fine. It has a 60 FPS mode where it was mostly stable and looked pretty dang good. They even have a 40 FPS mode if you have a 120 hertz display, and I actually like that because it makes the visuals look much better, and 40 FPS is weirdly a lot better than 30 FPS locked. It's just a lot smoother, even though it's not 60, but it's cool because you get that balanced mode where it's the best of both worlds at times. So yeah, I genuinely recommend Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Not the best of the genre, but definitely not the worst. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review of Wuchang Fallen Feathers. If you're new to my channel, I always review JRPGs, action RPGs, Soulslikes. I'm absolutely obsessed with these genres and love to see what devs can bring to the table, and I think they did a great job here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Peace.